Good afternoon, everyone.
This is Mini Ice Age Conversations, episode number 14. Today is March 18th.
I have Jeff Raymond with me, the real-life Martian. And as I always report on the news, I've told you that I want to get more into people who are taking action. So you can also see what others are doing in preparation or how you can get yourself on a more sustainable lifestyle, which the planet's moving to anyway. You can check out Jeff's YouTube channel at The Real Martian, all one word, and also his website, www.therealmartian.com. Now, what impressed me about this was Jeff has set up a full system, and get this, growing and raising trout under snow cover with an agricultural project that he's built himself. And that's why I wanted to bring him on today. There's so many valuable ideas that he can share with you. For those of you who are just getting started, you know, at the level he's at, maybe you're not there yet, but it's a way for you to see what's possible, what's right for you, to explore some options. But I wanted to show you how far you can really take it. And here we go. Jeff, I'll let you introduce yourself, and thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff. I'm the Real Martian. Sorry for my voice. I got a little sick. I kind of worked myself into a frenzy here. My wife and I own a 20-acre ranch in Washington State in the United States. And a few years ago, I've been doing lots of research, and we basically decided to try to create a fully sustainable system on our house that will provide sustainable food and energy for a family of 4. And it's kind of our mission. We really want to help design this system so that we can help others design similar systems and help combat some of the hunger and some of the food shortages that we have right now today throughout the world, as well as in the future based on the changing world around us. So I'm really excited to be here, Dave. Thanks for having me to help walk through some of the things that we've done. Ready for your questions.
Okay, so being a former Air Force engineer, can you go into that a little bit and what spurred you and gave you some ideas or inspiration to start your project?
I went to school at Embry-Riddle, and I'm an aerospace engineer. I focus on space studies. I went through ROTC, and I joined the Air Force, where I got to do some pretty cool stuff, working with satellites and war games and other really interesting things. I wanted to be an astronaut. That's why I was on that path. I was doing really good at it. I was learning a lot about space systems. I was learning the path that I wanted to be on, how to get to be an astronaut. And unfortunately, because of some medical issues, I just wasn't competitive. I was in the right place. I had met the right people, made the right connections, but I had a bulged disc and had a right bundle branch block in my heart that kind of made it where I wouldn't be competitive. And when you're going up to try to be an astronaut, you know, you're going up against the world's greatest people. I mean, kind of the cream of the crop. And even if you are really awesome, if you have a little bit of a problem, there's somebody else there that's just as awesome as you are, and they probably don't have that problem. So I had to shift gears. I had to change my plan in life. I had to recalibrate. And I ended up deploying to Baghdad. I was out there with the 18th Airborne Corps. Even though I was in the Air Force, I deployed with the Army. I had the honor and pleasure of serving with some fine men and women out there. I was there for 8 months, and when I was out there, I just had a calling. You know, God was kind of pulling on my heart. I needed to come home. Got done with my deployment, served my country, came back home, left the Air Force, didn't have a job, and ended up kind of falling into a great job, doing some more aerospace engineering type of stuff, only more from the management side. And throughout that time, my dad was a big inspiration. He has since passed away, and we really wanted to live off grid. He and I, you know, it was kind of something we wanted to do. So I had it in me for a long time to try to figure out how to kind of get that cabin out in the woods, kind of be self-sustaining, do our own thing, provide our own food, get our own meat. I had a conflict inside of me. It was a very difficult conflict because I had that pull to kind of want to live the old ways, you know, the old country. I grew up with horses, loved the mountains, loved being out there fishing, hunting. It's good stuff. but I have this piece of me that wants to be an astronaut, wants to go into space. And both of those were kind of conflicting because you don't see too many astronaut farmers out there. So I started doing a bunch of research on self-sustaining energy independence, and that led me to a bunch of studies that really opened my eyes to some things that just aren't being shared in the mainstream media, and I don't know why. I mean, I can guess, but there's a big problem coming that has nothing to do with climate change, and I say that because I don't want to be political. I just want to use some basic math and talk about physics. I find that physics are very difficult to overcome, so I tend to make that argument. By the year 2050, there's going to be 9.5 billion people on the earth, according to quite a few different studies. And what that means is that our population has entered an exponential growth curve. And to anyone, I mean, from grade school up, they teach you in biology class that things grow exponentially when they're living systems, living creatures. We're no different. Humanity has decided to grow and grow and grow. And as we grow, we have more kids, we grow faster. In order to sustain hungry mouths on the planet, according to a UN report, United Nations report, by the year 2050, we have to increase agricultural output by 75%. That's huge. That's a really, really big number. And based on that report, as well as some of my own numbers, looking at things, the best that we can do as a society, that's a global society, is 33%. And if you kind of let that sit, kind of sink in a little bit, that's a huge deviation. That's not like, hey, we can do a stretch goal and we can get it. And that's just a little less than half of being able to get to that 75%. And so let's talk about that 33%. Are they doing everything they can? 33% is taking up all of the remaining arid land. That's land that's able to be farmed and ranched and cultivated. It's taking up all of it and using it. It is using advanced, I'll call them aggressive agricultural practices, significant amounts of GMO plants in order to survive. They'll have to be modified, and quite a bit of fertilizer.
And I also wanted to add in, if I could, Jeff, recalibrating on a dime and understanding that these changes are here. And just yesterday, I read part of a new FAO report talking about new strains of wheat rust that they've never seen before. They've just suddenly come in this last 6 to 8 months, and they're sweeping across Europe and the Middle East. They're unstoppable, and they're combining with the yellow rust, which is a known pathogen that's very difficult to control. But this new strain that they haven't even named yet, that's how new it is, has combined with the yellow rust and become sort of a super rust. It's completely uncontrollable, and currently, when it infests or gets into a field, it is at 100% losses of that crop. So when we start to think about the amount of food that we need to produce, suddenly we're getting new, plant pathogens coming in that are uncatalogued. They just appeared from nowhere. Is it from cosmic ray increases? Is it from too much pesticide? Is it from who knows where it's from? But this is also another problem to contend with that's not even thought about moving forward into the future, into 2050. That's still 25 years away, and we already got unstoppable rust strains sweeping through the crops across our planet at the moment.
Well, you inspire me to work myself even when I'm sick, Dave, because it's stuff like that makes me keep going. News like that is not good for the problems that are coming, so I'm glad you shared that. I need to go get some sleep now so I can get to work again. And keep going. That's what I always hear God telling me. Sometimes I doubt what we're doing. We're going to get to that, but I always hear him saying, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. This is really important. And what you just highlighted is probably why I keep hearing that. So let's see here. We left off with the food challenge and aggressive agriculture. And just to finish why we got started on this, the next little piece of information I got is maybe even more important. And that is that I believe it's NASA put up a series of satellites, and they did a study of all the freshwater aquifers underground. And for a majority of the planet, that's where we get all of our fresh water from, especially in agricultural heavy zones, lots of well pumping. You can see evidence of that here in the States, in California, where they pumped so much water out of the ground to support the country as we are right now, that the ground has actually started sinking. I think it's been a few centimeters only, but they're now able to detect that change, and it's because there's not as much water underground holding the land up. So in this study, what they discovered is that 50% of all the freshwater aquifers on the planet are not filling up faster than what we're consuming them, meaning they're emptying. So even though they go through a filling cycle, we consume more out of them than what there is coming back in. So it's a net negative. That doesn't help increase agricultural output, not the way that we do agricultural output, and that is kind of what led us to aquaponics. The system that we're putting together, really, it's not something that's brand new. It is essentially just combining a bunch of different things together to get the desired output. And that's the engineering that we've really done, is systems engineering. You know, looking at a problem, we need more food. We need to use less water to get that food. We need to protect that food. And how are we going to get energy as well? Because food's great, but in today's society, the comforts that we have, or even the not comforts but necessities, and by that I mean think medicine. You know, a broken arm is great when you have x-ray machines, but to help fix them, it's pretty easy. It's not great to have a broken arm. It's easy to fix if you have the right tools, but all the tools that we have, they run on electricity. So even if you get rid of the comforts of life, our computers, TV, hair dryers, and I don't have a problem with a hair dryer, so I don't need to worry about that one, but all the other ones are pretty important. If we get rid of all that, we still have essential services that require electricity. How about pumps for water? You know, there's a lot of things that we take for granted, and some parts of the world don't take it for granted. In fact, they don't even have that today. But exactly what we want to do is to provide a system that delivers sustainable food and energy to local communities around the world. If we're really lucky, someday it won't be just around the world, it'll be off this world as well, and that's where the real Martian comes in. Because the system that we're designing is a closed system, meaning it can work just as good on Mars as it can on Earth. In fact, if we think about putting it on Mars, it actually helps us design a better and more energy efficient, more water conserving system that can be utilized and deployed throughout the world here on Earth. It took us 5 years worth of research, studying, looking at different ways of sustainable energy, figuring out what the state of the industry is, and about a year's worth of design effort to put together the system, come up with the requirements, do some analysis, some simulation, just some fundamental engineering stuff, and we came up with a system that you're going to see on YouTube. It's far from perfect. It's an early prototype. We're excited though to get it going. That the system that we're talking about, again, I encourage you to check out the YouTube channel, but it provides food for a family of 4. The system we actually built is a production level system meant to do commercial operations so that we can help fund our research and our development. So ours does, I think it's about 16 families of 4.
The YouTube channel is The Real Martian, all one word. And I wanted to just quickly jump back on the water and the aquifers, because some of my viewers know that I have done already a video on primary water. So we understand that underneath the Earth's crust, there's more water captured there than there are in the actual oceans of our planet. Understanding that there are some primary recharge points, that's great. But how are you going to move all that water from a primary recharge point on the planet to agricultural zones that are thousands of miles or hundreds of miles away? That's something quite different. Now, Jeff, can you throw a few images on the screen here of your project?
The first one that I have up here is kind of receiving some of the equipment that we have, the inspection crew. Let me open up the next one here, kind of give you a bigger view. So what you're looking at right now, Dave, is a picture of the area that we're actually going to have to excavate on our ranch. This was actually taken, I think it was May 1st is when we actually really started getting here getting going. And we walked out, we flagged the whole area, we got everything marked to match the design that we had. And then we had to start excavation. So it took us quite a few days. And by us, I really mean me sitting on a tractor, going back and forth, preparing the land, getting everything ready so that we can actually put up building. You're just seeing here the excavation site. And then we had to tamp it all down. Very important to tamp down the ground, make sure it's stable. We had over 10 feet worth of vertical dirt that we had to move. The pictures don't do it much justice in this image, but if we look at this one here, you can kind of get an idea of the sheer magnitude of dirt and why it took me like 3 days of nothing but going back and forth to fill this area in. And then we tamped it all down with rollers, the vibrating roller. And aquaponics is hugely important to this system. It directly addresses the two critical needs, and that is sustainable food as well as less water usage. So all those people out there that know so much more about aquaponics than I do will be quick to tell you that aquaponics uses 90% less water than traditional agriculture. And that is just absolutely fantastic. And if you have a way to capture evaporation, you could probably improve that even more. What we're looking at here, these two lanes in dirt, are actually the fish tank lanes. One of the, I would say, slightly innovative things that we did is we want to take advantage of the Earth's heat as well as the Earth's ability to cool. Where we live, we're above 45 degrees latitude. Cool water fish are much easier for us to deal with. Now, not everyone's going to have the same fish type wherever they're at, but this idea of putting the fish tanks down in the ground does two things. One, it saves space, which is one of the requirements that we have. We want to make 2 feet or 1 foot of land worth 2 feet. So we can't just have stuff spread all over the place. And the second benefit that putting it down, that I've already alluded to, of putting it down on the ground, is that it helps save heating and cooling costs, because that earth is there usually around 54 degrees Fahrenheit. That actually helps keep everything fairly stable. So that's what you're seeing in that picture. Another aspect that we had to do was dig this hole, which it doesn't do any justice. You can hardly tell the scale. That's a 12 foot
That's huge.
hole.
That's huge.
That is a really big hole. And what's going into this hole is going to be an anaerobic digester. And an anaerobic digester takes waste, any organic waste essentially, through the process of bacteria eating that waste. It produces two really valuable things. The first thing that it produces is what we'll call digestate. It's a liquid fertilizer that is actually extremely potent. It's organic. It breaks down a lot of all the bad stuff that you wouldn't want to have inside of a fertilizer. You're not going to get something as clean as digestate if you go to the store, or organic. And that digestate, I worked with Solar Cities, Solar C3 Itties, if you want to look it up. They have a Twitter account, LinkedIn account, etc. They're the ones that kind of tipped me off to this digester. This is from a company called Puxin, Puxin, out of China. And they sell you the kit like what I'm showing here. You can see the outer kit. This is the stomach, and everything's fairly easy to put together. You just got to add the cement. I dedicated all this to my dad, so kind of wrote his name and history here. And then you take that lower section off and you build the neck, which is going to store the second byproduct, which is methane. These are very popular in like your neck of the woods, as you and I have talked before, as well as just research online. You can see digester technology is something that can be deployed anywhere and can be used in basically any part of the planet. We get digestate off of this, which we can feed into our aquaponics system to help bring micronutrients into the system. We can also take that digestate and we can put it on our crops and on our fields so that you can actually get a better return for our livestock. We raise cattle here as well. By putting this all in the ground here, we start to cover it all up. On the right-hand side is the inlet. On the left-hand side is the outlet where you can actually collect digestate. what we're going to do is we're going to put some storage tanks in here, which you're seeing drop in by crane. We use the exact same form that built the neck on the digester. We use that to build this one right here that just got put in is going to be digestate overflow. So if you put a bunch of stuff in the inlet, it goes in here, and that's going to push the water up, the digestate up on this side, which will then flow into the holding tank so that you can collect that and use it.
So you talked about research and availability in companies, that sort of thing. Also, for those of you who are looking for additional research on this, keywords in Google are going to be biogas. That's another way to talk about the same thing, but more the layman term for it, biogas. Also, if you look at the BSP, the Biogas Research Support Program out of Nepal, they have full diagrams, but these would be smaller than yours, based for a small family with 2 cows that is in Nepal, and that's the standard rollout unit there. So if you look at BSP, Biogas Support Program in Nepal, you can get all the diagrams, build one of these yourself, but it's not a unit that you can get from China. You actually have to use the bricks and mortar and actually put it up yourself. But it's a perfect method to use, and it runs entire villages in Nepal, and this stuff is well-proven, well-known technology that is 100% usable and proven.
Absolutely. The digester technology, when we came upon it, was really an answer to our sustainable energy requirements. Being able to harvest that methane means that we can use it to burn, to create heat. And the nice thing about biogas, or the methane, is that it burns clean, byproduct of water. It's a really great gas to be able to use. We can also use it to generate electricity because we can put it through a generator. It is our goal here that we can actually convert my truck to run off of natural gas, which is just methane, and be able to actually drive around town from the poop gas that we got, the biogas, and not have to go to the gas station and fill up anymore. The digester is a key piece of what we're trying to do. And the technology, like you said, I mean, it's robust. This is how nature, this is how God's system works. You know, it takes the bacteria and it eats things. It's pretty unstoppable. The only thing that does slow down a digester, as we have discovered, is about -8 Fahrenheit. When it gets below freezing, 32 Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius, the digester slows down unless you put a heater in it, which we have done, but ours isn't fully functional yet, so we're hoping to get that done in our future phase. The next thing that we got to put up is actually the structure. So you're looking at us here. This is another purchase out of China. I'm going to butcher this name, but it's SUIHE, SUIHE Shelters. Actually a really great company. They're really very helpful. They did some custom work for us because we wanted a cover on this building that was more custom. It's pretty easy to put it all together once you understand what goes on. And it's a fairly large structure. Ours is 80 feet long by 40 feet wide by 22 feet tall. It's a behemoth of a structure. Here's a nice view from the very top. You can see we have 4 grow lanes, as we call them. These lanes are the fish tanks I spoke about earlier. And then what's going to go on top of these are shelves that will hold the aquaponics system. This is a pretty awesome building. It's held into the ground. Each one of these pilings has 4 3-foot long, that's about a meter, stake that goes into the ground, and it is solid. It's not going anywhere. So pretty cool putting that building up. Not hugely difficult. I actually did a majority of it by myself. You saw some help there with the key structures. But like putting this fabric up, I actually ended up doing that by myself. So it doesn't take an army of people. And I think that's one of the things, we want to focus on here is this is a solution that everyday people can do. This building is relatively cheap compared to the amount of equipment that normal farmers have to go buy. This is 1/6 of the cost of a small tractor, kind of putting that in perspective. We ended up skinning the building, as we call it. It took us 3 people to do this and a come along, but definitely something that you can do. And you get that skin over the top. You can see kind of the ends floating here. And the building kit comes with ratchets, and you just ratchet everything down until you get it nice and tight. Part of what we decided to put in here as well is energy production. You know, we talked about methane as one source, but we need a lot of electricity. So solar is a key way that we're going to do it. So we have a 16.5 kilowatt system that we installed, pretty much did it ourselves. That's really the best way to do it. If you can work through it, the plans and everything, you can buy them online. We bought ours from Free Clean Solar as a whole kit. They were very nice to us, did a good job. And then the county here, we have regulations that we have to follow. They look at the plans, they approve the plans, and then we just start. It's essentially Legos for adults. You know, you get that first Lego package when you're a kid and you're like, what do I do with this? There's parts all over. But eventually you get organized and you start putting it together. And that's essentially how the solar panels come together as well. So this is the same picture, but now you can see the slack has been taken out of the building. So we got all tightened in. And here's a nice picture inside of the building. Now you can see again that slack that was inside is all gone. And I want to point out, you know, the digester is actually inside of the building, and that's on purpose. The feed for the digester, the inlet, is outside of it, so we can feed it constantly. But we want the digester inside because when the digester runs, it actually gives off heat. And in the winter, we want to collect that heat. It's not a lot of heat, but it will help us in the winter. Every little bit helps, as we just discovered going through this winter. And then you got a nice view here of the grow lanes as they're all coming together.
Now, could I ask you a quick question? You mentioned that you purchased a few things from whatever you got from China in North America. Was there some decision that was made as to why one was preferable over the other?
Yeah, I mean, it came down to cost. Having been in the Air Force, I consider myself a patriot. I would really like to buy from my local country, from my local manufacturers. There's lots of hardworking people out there that I'd like to support. But we had to get this system done, and we have limited funds. When it came down to it, I found the same building for sale in America, and just the tent and the structure without the ends.
Were the first part that you tarped?
Yeah, right here, the ends. If you look at just the fabric that goes over the top plus the structure, in America, that facility cost $20,000. And then you got about another $10,000 to get each of the end caps. And so you're looking at about $30,000, I think it's $25,000 to $30,000 for this exact same structure purchased in America. And even after I paid import fees and taxes, this building right here has like $12,000 after tax and import fees. So I was actually thoroughly impressed with the quality of the product. It's exceptional. It's very well made. The material is very well made. It was packaged very well. Came in giant steel metal containers that really kept it safe. Right here, I picked it up from the port, threw it on the trailer, brought it home. My trailer wasn't really big enough. I didn't really know the full size, the dimensions of these. Talk about a mistake. But the port was quite a ways away. So I got there and I was like, oh, I got to make this work in one trip. So on the trailer it went. And sadly, on my way home, the side of the trailer actually collapsed and I popped a tire and ended up fixing it so I could make it home. But that was a big mistake. And then on the digester, the kit that I found, again, recommended to me, the only place I could find it was actually out of China. All the forms that we needed to actually put this all together, they came in a really nice kit, and you can make up to 50 digesters off of one kit. You can reuse it over and over. Again, all you have to add is the cement and the pipe. Those are the decision factors there. On the solar panels, what I was looking for is a turnkey solution, and this is where folks here in the U.S. had a really nice setup. Is basically, I think it came down to wholesalesolar.com and freecleansolar.com. And the best package at the time came through Free Clean Solar. He did a really great job, really nice plans. Everything was shipped right to my door. with the instructions of how to put it all together. So you can get it cheaper. You could buy offshore components and get them sent in. But I found the turnkey solution was worth the money to spend on the solar. It was pretty awesome when we got the solar installed and I got to turn it on for the first time and watch our power meter run backwards. It was such an awesome feeling, so freeing to know that what you need to live is generated right on site. I actually jumped up in the air and screamed, man. It was pretty cool.
Exciting. Does your local area have a buyback program? So if you overproduce on the panels, say for an hour or something per day or two, whatever, does it buy back the electricity that you're producing from your unit if you're not consuming all?
That's exactly it. It's called net metering, Dave, and we do produce excess. That's why the meter runs backwards. And the way that system works is every amount of energy that you produce in excess of what you use is added to your bill as a credit. So when you can't produce, you get to take advantage of your overproduction. So say that differently, right? When it's wintertime here, it's dark most of the day. We don't have a lot of production. But that means that we get to take advantage of all the overproduction we had in the summer months, which is significant. We like to say that the power grid has turned into our battery. And during the summer months, we really focus on producing as much power as we can, keep the solar panels clean and clear, for example. And all that excess is added to our grid battery. We don't actually have a battery backup system. So if the grid goes down, our solar panels turn off. And that is a safety consideration here in the States. And I would argue anywhere really is if the grid goes down and you allow your system to continue to generate, that could backfeed a line. And you could have some line worker out there thinking that the lines are dead and he touches the power line that he's trying to fix and he gets killed. It's a really reasonable reason why they design the systems. They're all designed to turn off when the power goes out. Now you can buy components, inverters that can detect power outage, and then you can switch them to where they're no longer connected to the grid, and instead they'll run into your local battery bank and charge it, and then you can run off the batteries, or there's different ways you can set up the system. But yeah, the solar panels are pretty awesome. And the net metering agreement, we really like that.
What is this? Looks like some raised beds. I'm curious what that is.
You're exactly right. What we got here, remember before, we were looking from the top of the building down and you could see the fish tanks. Now we actually have pond liner. This is just EPCH or something like that. It's environmentally sound. It's not going to leach any chemicals into the water. It's organic, so you can actually raise fish in it and then sell them and eat them. It's not going to leach any chemicals. So you put that down, fill it full of water, and then what you see here is pallet racking. We're going to have a lot of weight on these shelves. This lane here on the right, this is what we call lane 2. Right now, it's only halfway built. We ran out of money, so we couldn't finish putting the second deck on this one. But here on what we call lane 3, this one you can see we're actually starting to install the second deck. Once we got this decking in, then the next thing we started doing is putting in grow light bars. Now, what these are, there's only one light per bed, and they're actually sitting on a motor that runs back and forth, which we have on a video on YouTube. You can see it. And we did that to save cost as well as to conserve electricity. You'll notice that the building itself is not opaque, meaning that no light can get through. You actually see quite a bit of light coming through on this building. It's not a greenhouse, though. We did that on purpose. The greenhouses that are out there are just as expensive, if not more expensive than this building. And their cover doesn't last very long, maybe 4 years for your best cover. This cover here will last up to 10 years, and it can withstand heavy, heavy snow loads, heavy wind loads, dust blowing on it. It's a significantly more robust cover. But because it is darker, because it is heavier than a clear sheet of plastic, we still need to augment our system with light. And because of where we live at our latitude, it gets dark for a large part of the year. So we still need these lights. So these are LED lights, very energy conscious, and they move back and forth on a bar with this motor so that we only need one light per bed rather than the 3 that would actually be required if you didn't have this light bar. I wish I could say I'm the genius who thought of that, but actually a lot of people have done this before us, and we're just using the smart ideas from other people. So this particular shot here, I think, was pretty cool. This is the first time had power and turned everything on out in the building. Just a really satisfying moment for us when I got to turn those on. So in this picture here, you can see that we're actually putting pond liner into the grow beds. And these grow beds have a long story. I'll try to keep it short, but it was difficult to figure out what material to use to build these grow beds. We talked about fiberglass, carbon fiber. Both of those are lightweight, fairly strong. But the manufacturing of that for us was just out of reach at the time. We didn't have a mold. I would have had to create one. And then there's some dynamics that happen when you fill a somewhat flexible structure with water. It tends to change its shape, even if it is semi-rigid. So then I looked at the cost of what it would take to actually get carbon fiber or get fiberglass, and it was just astronomical. It was like $500 per bed to get all the fiberglass that we needed. At the time where we're at right now, there's 12 beds. I mean, the next step was wood. Wood is very readily available here to us. We decided not to go with pressure treated because we're putting pond liner, as you see in this picture, inside of each one of them. And there's not much splashing where these boards are getting wet. And we do have a dehumidifier in the system to help with humidity capturing and recycling. So here's a little bit closer view of the grow bed itself. We've got the pond liner in. This thing right here in the middle, this plastic white pipe, it's a suction drain. And what happens is water will fill up, and there's a little pipe right in the middle of it that you can't see in this shot, and water will flow over the top of that, and it creates a siphon. It sucks all the water that's in this bed. It sucks it out really, really fast. Even if it's all the way up here, it'll start draining, and it'll just suck all the water out, and that drops it back down in the fish tank. And this is a hugely important process. The reason it's so important is because we actually fill this bed full of rock. In this case, it's lava rock, which is a lightweight rock that doesn't float, mostly pH neutral. And once you put this rock in here, bacteria will start to show up just naturally. No matter where you're at, this bacteria will show up and it'll start to collect. The bacteria are called nitrifying bacteria. And what they do is they eat ammonia, which is in our environment as well, and they convert it into what's nitrates and nitrites. And the plants that will go into this grow bed, that's their food. So as we pump the fish water, the dirty fish water from below this bed, we pump it up into this bed using just standard pool pumps, actually. Like right here, here's the pool pump. It's sucking out of the bed and then pumps it in. It fills the bed up. The bacteria take that dirty water, they clean it up, and then we drain it back down into the fish tank, and that creates clean water for the fish. If you didn't do this, then you would either be constantly cleaning this water and replacing it, or your fish would die. So when you add both of these things together, it's a really great system for growing. All your fertilizer is right there provided by the fish, and then the plants clean up the water for the fish. It's a great system.
Yeah, that would be one thing to consider if you're trying to do an aquaponics system is, if you do get some bad bacteria or some disease inside that water, your whole batch is dead. And if you're trying to circulate water between tanks, how do you prevent one die off in a tank? This is very similar if you're going to be raising spirulina algae or some sort of edible algae, chlorella, for example. If one batch goes bad and you're circulating that water between without some break in there, it's going to contaminate everything along the way if you're sharing 8 or 10 tanks. So how do you get over that? Is it independently cordoned off or is it shared? I was curious how you get past those issues.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and it's one that we've thought of. In other aquaponic systems that I've seen, they usually, in order to keep power down and to minimize electrical consumption as well as all the parts that they usually have a central pumping station. So they'll have one pump that goes everywhere. In our system, we thought of exactly what you said, and we decided that the best way to deal with that is to have each lane on its own system. Now, there's no way that we can break up the lane that we can think of to where you can stop water if you detect it and save a bed. We would have to have some significant sensors to be able to detect that bacteria. And usually, if something's going wrong, you know it after you can do something about it to stop it. You know, at that point, what I mean is you'd be in fixing it mode, not stopping it mode. So we have each lane on its own pump station that is electronically controlled, and we have a series of sensors that we can monitor ammonia, pH, oxygen level, water temperature, water depth, and we can do the best we can to make sure that the system is healthy using technology to assist us.
Yeah, because that was one of the things when I was working on an algae project was we were really concerned about batch kill off and sharing of water. So we had a bag grow system that laid on a fish farm water surface. And again, we cordoned those off into single 50-meter rows that were within the 1-meter square bags that snapped together in a system. So that water circulating was just contained in that one area. And after it was pulled out for the siphoning for harvest, then it mixed together. But during the growth period, we kept everything apart, especially with the growth medium.
Same idea here. You accept some risk when you're going to do this because you can't control everything. Right now, we have minimized the risk down to the single lane being negatively impacted, and that lane can't impact another lane unless we contaminate. At that point, we would be the biggest problem in the system. See here, this picture here, we have almost all the lights on. You can see the beds are in. This is lane 2. Again, in the next phase of this project, we're actually going to be completing this lane as well as this one. It has one more bed to put on it, so we have a double-decker system. And the reason for that double-decker system I alluded to earlier is because we want to make 1 square foot of land worth 2, and we can do that by going vertical. One of the things I really love about this system design is that we can take it and we can use it in urban areas. We can use it in rural areas like where we're at. But the urban areas are probably the more exciting place where we can put these. This system is really big, and we did that on purpose, 1, to generate revenue, and 2, to actually keep costs down, because making things small requires some engineering because a lot of parts don't exist. We would have to build them ourselves, so that equals money. What we wanted to do is get this really big system where size really doesn't matter, built so that we can figure out all the things we need to do that were mistakes. You know, here's where the engineering could have been better. Here's where you had excess material. Here's an inefficient way to do things. And we want to find all those things so that we can engineer them out in the next prototype that we're going to build, which we call HAB 2. When, I hope, we get the bugs all worked out, this system could be deployed in a warehouse in Detroit, an area that's been ravished by economic downturn, can turn into a center of agricultural renaissance, doing things differently, using technology to help and not hurt, and doing it in a way that protects the crops growing, uses less water, is energy efficient, are all things that we want to be able to do after we get our second prototype built. We truly believe we can. We believe that you could get this system down to the size of a Connex, a container, like what you'd see on the back of a truck. And people even in the city could have smaller versions of it. Think of houses that have been modified to have a little extra space where you can have a small aquaponic system. Maybe you can't grow all your vegetables, but you can grow a lot of your leafy greens, maybe some of your spices, things that you enjoy. You could grow that all right there in your urban house. Maybe even make it smaller and put it on a countertop and do, just little leafy vegetables for a side salad. You could do all those types of things. You could take up 5 floors in a skyscraper in Beijing, and you could put all of this system in there and help feed and give power to part of the building, as well as manage some of the waste coming off of that building, all the residents. So we're really excited about what this system can do. And so let's pivot to what it can do. This is a shot where we're actually trying to raise money through selling of microgreens, which are just small versions of everyday plants, but they're packed with nutrients. We use these grow trays. The microgreens are just little seeds, and they start to sprout. They just keep on growing. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. Eventually, you get beautiful trays like this one here, just beds of luscious green nutrition, all grown using aquaponics, sustainable energy, all solar power driven. Really very, very rewarding to grow these. And we're selling these to market and helping generate revenue to pay for our research, pay for the project. In addition, we also have our own food that we're starting to grow. So this is late last summer, early fall. These have been put in the beds for probably about 3-4 weeks, and they're really starting to grow. And we were just learning what we're doing. We have some moss on the rock here because we had too much water going. Not everybody's a green thumb. My wife has the benefit of being the green thumb. I'm more like a brown thumb. I can build the system. I can help it go. I can give her all the tools she needs, but she's the one who really has the tender, loving care to produce wonderful looking vegetables and produce like this. We're currently at the state where we're working on automation, and automation is very important to us. And the reason for that, I can kind of talk to in this picture. This winter is now coming to an end. It's been a really, really tough winter, and I think you've talked about that with your subscribers, your viewers, your followers. We expect that it's going to get worse. These systems require a lot of attention, and farmers and ranchers, they'll tell you, there's a reason they call it animal husbandry, is because you're married to your farm, you're married to your ranch. It takes your full attention. And we believe that we can use automation, which is that kind of astronaut side of me coming through. We believe we can use automation and software to actually allow people to run a system as big as the one that you see here year round from any place on the planet. And if you put the right automation in, that's absolutely doable. Our requirement is that you can leave this system for 2 weeks and you can run it from afar and it will survive. Your produce will be there, your fish will be there, and you don't have to be there, which means you can take your kids to school, you can go on vacation, you can go do work projects, you can travel for work. If you're in an urban environment, you can go out, you can do things. You don't have to be there all the time like a traditional farmer. Now, this picture is a great way to highlight this because we don't have automation right now. And this winter's been so tough that I've basically been out there working myself to death. That's why I sound so bad right now, to keep it going. Here's this big giant snowstorm. Well, it puts pressure on the solar panels. You got to go clean the solar panels. The quality of the water, it's changing. You got to go out there every single day and test it. Make sure that those fish aren't going to die. Heat, you got to have fuel. We started off fueling this building with wood heat, and that was just not sustainable. You're actually looking at a wood pile right here, and it lasted probably about a month. And I said, enough of this. I was going out there 2-3 times a day, late at night, putting wood in the fire, trying to keep this building above freezing. It was -8 Fahrenheit. I think that's like -20 Celsius. It was so cold. It was well below the design parameters I had that I was constantly feeding it wood. So we actually eventually switched over to diesel provided heat and using a space heater like what you're seeing right here. Normally you probably wouldn't do such a thing, but we came up with a way to use it where we only had to run one heater per lane for 15 minutes per hour. and we did that 24 hours a day. But I was out there constantly putting fuel in it. And had it not been for automation, this option wouldn't have even been possible, because all of this is controlled through a microcontroller that I built and programmed with software that I wrote, so that it will turn on by itself, it'll turn off by itself, and if anything goes wrong, it'll just shut off. It's because of that, kind of highlighting the point here, that with automation, everyone can install these types of systems.
Quick question here. When you're talking about the connectivity from afar, what types of network connectivity are you talking about specifically, for somebody who was wondering what did you mean by being able to control things from a distance? Can you explain that a little more on the computer programs you're using, and how you would, or do you have a camera set up in there so you can visibly see changes going on, or is it just a screen with numbers, or what can people expect in an automated from afar system?
I'm going to be pulling up some stuff here to help highlight that. What we mean by controlling at a distance is the ability to connect and monitor this system through the internet from any place on the planet. The system requires a local server, a computer that is at your local location, so that if the internet goes down, you still have all your data, you still have the ability to control the system. You have to put firewalls on it and protect it so that no one else can hack into your system and turn things on and off without you knowing. Right now, we're in what we call phase 2 of this project, where we're actually building a lot of these sensors, and you can follow that journey on our YouTube channel. But what you're going to see right now, this is a basic interface of our local server, and I can click on it, and I'm looking at lane 2 information. I can see the current temperature out there in the grow lane. I can see the bed temperature. I can see the outside air temperature. You know, it's 1 Celsius outside, but it's 12 Celsius in the grow media where the plants are at, which is plenty good for the plants to grow. And the air temperature inside of the building is at 3 Celsius. And then I have the ability to look at all the sensor data over time, which is what these charts are, where I can zoom in and I can see the behavior of the system as the day goes on and the sun comes out. It's heating up the system, and then it's cooling down again. It's heating up. Oh, here's a great day where actually this is today. It actually got up to 76 degrees inside the building and the heaters were off. I can see grow bed temperature here, and I can see outside air temperature, and I can kind of look out and see how all these things are related to each other. I can do some analysis. I can write software now that I have this data, and I can actually see, and I can use these things as triggers. So for example, if the grow bed temperature drops below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius, I could have the system turn on the heaters. Conversely, if the temperature in the grow bed gets above 60 degrees, don't turn on the heaters. Maybe turn on the air conditioners, because the fish are going to start to get unhappy. This is just an early prototype of the type of data we can gather. We'll be having oxygen sensors, carbon monoxide sensors for safety. We'll have a series of control valves that you'll be able to see if they're on or off. You'll be able to reach in and turn them on and off. You'll have alarms that tell you if you left the water running, which sounds like a really stupid thing, but is actually one of the most common mistakes that we make here, is we leave the water running. So the automation will really enable us to monitor the system as well as turn things on and off through an application that we're going to be creating and developing. Does that answer your question?
It does. And having an app that would be easy for somebody to use and implement, because you know, most people that are going to get into the sustainability thing are not at the level you're at. What they're looking for is a turnkey solution where somebody's already developed something that's proven that they can buy, and then they can implement themselves. They don't want to go through the prototyping process and the coding themselves that you do. Yeah, that's at such a high level that very few people on the planet are at that level to get there. Really, we're in like 1/10 of 1% of 1%, something at that level. You know, when you go to your gardening center, what are you going to look for? Well, most people are to get the plants that are up a bit and in a pot. So all they have to do is take it out and put it in the ground. You know, they don't want to go from seed and buy it and wait and water. And they're looking for the easiest solutions for that. And repair parts too. If I could come back to the repair parts you were talking about, if you're going to precision engineer your own parts, again, people aren't up to that level. So those of you starting out in this, the repair parts that are going to be easy plug and play, where I don't care if I'm living in Kansas or I'm living in Tokyo, I can still find the same size screws. Something like this, where we're thinking about repair parts going forward for the whole system.
That's an interesting observation. A lot of what we found as we've gone through this process, our goal is to go through the prototyping so other people don't have to. And we recognize exactly the challenge that you're bringing up. And we hope that the design that we come up with will be worthy enough for people to want to buy it. And for us, I'm an engineer. I do this for a living. I manage projects like this for a living for an aerospace company. I would like to get into the production side where we are actually putting the parts together so that people can buy them and not have to custom make anything. Now, the challenge that we ran into as part of this prototyping, and why you're absolutely right, a lot of people will probably not want to try to do this, is because the parts that are out there that are available, they're either for like the backyard hobbyist who wants to put together a small little system that maybe will, produce 1 tray's worth of microgreens equivalent. So a fairly small system, something where you're kind of doing just a few trays like this. You can get parts, you can get stuff, you can piece things together. That's not going to sustain a family of 4, which is what we want to do. So you can get those small things, but you can't get the family of 4. And then the next step up is industrial agriculture, where it's like buildings 3 or 4 times as complicated as what we have, bigger, badder, better, lots of parts, millions of dollars worth of equipment. And that's just too big, So we think we might be in a sweet spot where we can develop technology, develop the components, do a little bit of custom work now, and then be able to sell that to other people in a niche market and help further fund our research and provide even better components for more people to be able to install systems like that. On the maintenance side, we're learning a lot about maintenance. And there's a lot of things when you build a system like this that requires your attention. And again, that's where automation comes in. But really, we have to put this system together and figure out what maintenance is required. And then through engineering, through purposeful, dedicated focus, we're going to try to engineer out a large portion of all the challenges and problems that we're going to face, that normal people like us face, so that other people don't have to deal with that. We've been open with our lessons. We share almost everything on YouTube, so people can follow right along. And a lot of people aren't afraid to let me know when I mess up. But it's really a community effort. It's really cool to see all the people come together on YouTube, and they're into this mission. They want to help see this thing be successful, and they're there providing their guidance and their inputs so that we can help address concerns like what you bring up, Dave, with maintenance. And can people access this? Can normal people do this? All those people on YouTube are really supportive in trying to help us make this accessible to others. So I'm really quite blessed to be a part of that and make connections like with you and to learn from other people. And as we've gone on that journey, I've started to understand more and more that we really need to make this system accessible. What we're trying to do is find a real solution that someday you're probably going to want because it will be what you need to do. Does that address your question there, Dave?
It does. And I was wondering on the consulting side of things, if you're going to help somebody build out one of these systems, if I came to you and said, we're looking for something but 1/4 of the size of what you have, or my friend needs something that's 1/2 of the size because we don't want something that's 40 feet long. We're looking for something a little bit smaller. Do you have options to help people along design and move forward with that? Or what stage are you in the consulting end of things right now to help people roll these systems out?
Our goal is to be able to consult and to sell and to help people build this. That's our personal mission. That's our faith-guided mission. We really feel strongly about helping people get sustainable food and energy. So we absolutely want to get to that point. On the what I will call scalability challenge that you brought up. What if someone wants this smaller? What if they want it bigger? I'm really happy to report that this system scales perfectly. It's almost a 1-to-1. If you want half the size, then we can make it half the size. We reduce the size of the pumps. We reduce the size of the grow beds. The building gets smaller. Digester gets smaller. Solar panels get smaller. Everything scales. It's a really nice system. If you change one piece of it, all the rest of it has to change with it. It does scale. We actually started off this system in our office at the house with an aquarium. And essentially we built the grow lane structure that we've shown you here, where we have the bed and then the fish tank is down below it. That's exactly what we built in our office, in our home. And we had peppers growing in the middle of winter. It was snowing outside and we had peppers growing. It was really quite satisfying. Where we're at, could we do that right now today? I actually work a full-time job. It's a great job. Very blessed to have it. But I work 9 hours, 10 hours a day, plus drive time, so 12 hours total. And I come home and I work on this in the evenings, in the mornings, all weekend. And we've been doing that for the last 2 years and 3 months now, actually. We need to get enough revenue coming in to where it makes sense for me to be able to leave and still be able to provide for my family, run this ranch. But I think we probably need to get the building completed, which is what we're getting ready to start doing, is what we call phase 3, where we actually finish all of the grow lanes that you saw that were partially done, as well as put in lanes 1 and 4, which are currently missing. And there's some more automation that we need to get done, as well as write the software application that's going to control all of this. And at the end of phase 3, we'll be able to walk through and really learn all the things that we did wrong. And we're hoping we can find funding to do phase 4, which is another habitat, the second prototype, which will take all those lessons learned, make it more efficient, more energy conscientious. We only have 40 amps to run this whole building, which has really forced us to find energy efficient ways to do things. And we can't, for example, we need more heat. You saw our temporary solution is those diesel heaters. It's not really where we want to be. But we don't have enough energy to go put a heat pump in. Even geothermal heat, which is usually what most people say, still requires a heat pump that takes almost 20 amps to run. That means we'd have to turn off half the building in order to keep it warm. Passive geothermal is going to be something that we're going to be evaluating this year. It's been done in plenty of greenhouses. We're going to see if it works for us. But there's still some things we need to learn before I could really sit there and give my the real Martian stamp of approval on what we would build for someone. I'd be more than happy to help guide someone, but it takes a lot of time. And right now, until we're finished, I can't guarantee it. And I want to be able to guarantee that we can give you sustainable food and energy before someone invests money.
Understandable. And I was curious, do you have a couple of pictures of the trout there? Do you have an image of the trout? And at the same time, I also wanted to ask a question about the funding options that you're looking at or have come forward to you. What kind of funding options have you tried? What kind of traction are you getting? If you, in your wildest dream, could get funding for this project, what kind of capitalization are you looking for?
Let's start with the trout picture and then we'll get to the funding. We bought our trout from a trout farm locally. It was delivered in the truck right here. We got various sizes that were delivered. These are about 2 to 3 inches. To transfer them, you just basically grab them in a bag and then you come and dump them right into the grow lanes here, which you're seeing them do. We also got some broodstock, which are these guys right here. Broodstock are male and females that are breeding size. And it was our goal to be able to actually breed them out using breeding tanks like what we're seeing here, where you'd actually collect them, you'd milk them, you get the eggs and the sperm out, put the eggs on top, and then let the water flow. We went to our local hatchery. We were overwhelmed at first, but once we had someone actually tell us how to do it, it's somewhat simple. The hardest part about raising trout for breeding is actually catching them at the right time. This year, we put this on pause, and we're just going to actually, there's a beautiful trout right there. We're just going to keep buying from the fish farm as we need them and as we sell them, which that's not an unheard of practice. Actually, in cattle ranching, which we're getting into, we decided to breed out our cow, raise the offspring through winter. But a lot of ranchers, they'll tell you that some people will do the raising like what we're doing, and then they'll sell the yearlings. And then you keep the yearling for a year on pasture, and then you take it to auction. And what that means is you don't have to worry about breeding all the shots and everything that you would need. You wouldn't have to worry about that. And you don't have to worry about keeping them over winter, most importantly. So we're going to use that same idea here. We're going to just buy trout for the time being, probably through this year. And hopefully next year, we'll be able to start getting back to where we can actually start the spawning process and use the rearing tanks to raise them. That answers that question.
Yeah, and also, I see you're just using regular flexi tanks there. Did you buy those from somebody, or did the hatcheries provide those for you? Because those are the regular flexi tanks, 1,000 liters that deliver whatever liquid in. Were those available in your local area, or was that specific to the hatchery?
These were available local area. We just went and bought them. They were used. When you do buy them, you have to make sure that the stuff that was in them is going to be friendly to what you want to do. They have them where they're organic certified. For example, they've been cleaned. You're not going to have diesel or kerosene or, paint stripper or anything like that getting into your system. You also want to make sure you watch for things like food coloring, soda pop. So you want to make sure you get them nice and clean. But yeah, we just got these locally.
Because there's so many options of what you can access locally. It's not as if you have to import every scrap of a project from a different country or go thousands of miles away to special order something. What's locally at your fingertips that you can get to use in these projects? What's the percentage of locally sourced or locally used parts on your whole venture over there? Is it 10% or is it higher? What did you get locally, or let's say within a day or two delivery time?
Well, we've already talked about kind of the big ones that came from out of country.
Yeah, came from China, the big ones. But the internal parts, now what did you get locally then? Yeah. The wood, obviously, the racking that you have, everything.
I think I can say it differently. The only thing we didn't get locally were the liners for the ponds, the pumps, and the liners for the grow beds, as well as the grow lights and motors, grow lights and motors. Everything else we got locally.
No, so that gives a lot of options and hope for people like, wow, I can just go down and really start to experiment with some of these things on my own. Because again, what you have at that level is not going to be for everybody who's starting out at the moment. They're going to explore for what's right for them. They're going to take some baby steps. They're going to test the waters, if you will. So going to a giant scale out project like this compared to somebody who wants to just do something smaller at first, and they can actually find all these things locally and begin on their own time.
You're absolutely right. Home Depot is a great place to go. On the funding, we reached out to a venture capitalist, and we were put in connection with him, and we talked to him about this system before it was ever built. We were in the design phase still, but we knew what we had was good. We believed in it. And his constructive response, he was actually really nice to us. He was a really great guy. He says, I'm sorry, but you got the right motivation. You got the right idea. But if I can't see it, I'm not going to invest in it. I think that's exactly the right thing for him to have said. It hurt at the time, but I get it. Talk is cheap. A lot of people come up with ideas. But if you're not willing to put it out there, put yourself out there, take a risk, why in the world would they want to take a risk on you? So we cashed out a large portion of our retirement to fund it. We put all the money that we make, in addition to just covering the bills, we put that into it. So we have self-funded. We received one very gracious donation that we're really grateful for, that really helped us out. But everything has over 80%, actually I'd say 90% now, because we keep going, keep spending, is all on our own dime. We've searched for grants. They're difficult to find. We're kind of at an in-between stage right now. We don't fully depend on this system for our income, and a lot of the grants that are out there through like the Department of Agriculture, they want you to be a full-time farmer. And that makes sense. And I don't want to take money away from people who are hardworking individuals doing this for a living. So I'm not going to try to swindle my way into something like that. We're looking at NASA. We're dead serious about the Martian thing. This system, it has to be packaged differently, but it can go to Mars. cryogenically preserving those eggs isn't going to be a problem compared to humans. So we can get the fish up there. We can get the grow beds. There's plenty of rock on Mars. We believe folks like Elon Musk, visionaries like him, are people who, if we could find the right venture capitalists, we could build up the system and have the company that we create bought by Elon as an exit strategy. The only thing we don't like about that is we really want to do this for our life. We're really into this. We really believe in this. We don't want to just send it to Mars and be done. We want to send this thing to Africa. We want to send it to South America. We want to deploy it in the US. We want to go to Antarctica. We want to take this thing everywhere and provide sustainable food and energy to everybody. We don't really want to let the reins go. So we are looking for the investor who shares our same moral and business goals, because it does need to be a business. The mission-based aspect of this in today's world is becoming more and more difficult to find people who think that they should spend their money on it. Getting the right connections, I think, is probably the biggest part. And I honestly get the system done. Right now it's construction. When I first started YouTube, I remember some of the really harsh comments. They're like, this guy's an idiot. This is going to fail. The only problem with those comments is they don't know me.
I'm going to say that those are the same people that will say that to everybody because they do not want you to succeed, because they're the ones themselves who are too afraid to take the chance. So they try to limit everybody else in achievement by ridicule and criticism because they themselves don't take steps. They'd rather have you sit back there with them on the sofa than go out far in front of them and achieve your dreams.
That's well said. So we got a few things going for us. Our faith, we believe this is, our faith mission from God. We're Christians. We believe in helping people, and we're putting our foot on the ground and trying to make it happen, not just talking about it. I am stubborn and I am somewhat intelligent. And when you get those things together, when you have a purpose-driven mission, when you have some stubbornness and you have some intelligence or some resources, you put them together, you can do amazing things. We really believe we can make this work. Part of me is waiting to get phase 3 done, so there'll be that day of vindication. All those people that told you it can't be done, that you're going to fail. And we might fail, and as an engineer, that's part of the process. In today's world, people look at failure like it's always bad. Thomas Edison made hundreds of light bulbs before he got one right, and he had hundreds of failures. We don't consider him to be a failure. But I bet you there's people there that thought he was an idiot too for trying to do it. You want to do what? You want to put metal inside a glass and throw electricity through it? You're crazy.
Wait, you want to fly? Are you kidding me? You want to fly? No way.
Yeah, that's for birds, man.
It's just the same thing that repeats. Any of the visionaries are always criticized in the beginning, and then it comes out that their systems work, and then it becomes adopted and accepted globally, and that becomes part of our daily life. And you look at that routinely. You could probably start back at the steam engine. Somebody is like, are you kidding me? You're going to burn wood and compress some gas to make a piston move? Go back to the farm or something,
Yeah.
So my call out to any of my viewers that are out there, if you know any grants or have possibilities of persons who have a list of grants that would be applicable to this situation, please reach out to myself or contact Jeff over at his YouTube channel, The Real Martian, or www.therealmartian.com, and start a conversation. If you know anything that way for the funding, please share with us.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it, Dave. And you and I have spoken before. Just a shout out to you. There's so much different information out there today. I really appreciate what you're doing on your site and the journalism, the investigative reporting that you're doing. It's a pet peeve of mine that in today's world, the news has lost track of what journalists really should be doing. You've done a great job of collecting facts and data and presenting them for people to look at, and you're informing them. So I really thank you for what you've done and for giving me the opportunity to come on here and talk to you about what we're trying to do.
I learned so much by watching this. I'm actually into this solutions base for the movement of our societies going forward into 2019. And after when we believe the first crop losses are going to occur due to weather changes and these new fungal events. Let's touch base again, once you get a little further along, and then hopefully some people will respond out to you and we can have our next conversation. I know you'll be a little bit busier during the summer, but after that time, let's touch base again.
We'd love to do it.
All right. Talk to you later.
And I do appreciate you spending the last hour with us. I hope you got something out of our conversation, that you yourself know that you can approach self-sustainability step by step. Others are doing it. You can do it as well. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe what you just listened to. As well, join me for episode number 15, where we take a full look over the last 2 months of global weather, unusual events, and just strange occurrences. I'll see you then.